Hello, everyone, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Crypto Miners Twitter Space. My name is Mary, and I will be your host. And also, a little reminder that anything we talk about in here is for educational purpose only and should not be taken as financial advice. And do your own research, please. But with that said, I have the honor to present a really special project today, and it's Ankr. And welcome, Mr. Josh Neuroth, the VP product person. Or you have to uh, tell us a
Yeah,
little bit about
thanks.
yourself, Josh. It's
Yeah,
lovely to have you here.
thanks. Yeah, love to be here, and thanks again for setting this up. It's great to see so many community members joining here. Yeah, so I
Yes.
I uh, help with our product team at Ankr. Have been involved for a bit over 3 years now, and we've come a long way from being kind of one of the first infrastructure focused protocols out there. We've pivoted the business several times and now are probably the fastest growing Web3 infrastructure provider out there, as well as a leader for several of the chains that I'm sure everyone on this call is familiar with, um, like Avalanche, Phantom, Binance Smart Chain, and Polygon. We
Yeah.
are fast growing, expanding kind of the services that we offer, and we've just had, honestly, this year has been one of the highest amounts of traction for us. So, one of the things that we've been focusing on this year is revenue, becoming more integrated with different projects in the space, and then also building a better product and better service and a better brand. So,
That's
we're
great.
excited to be here, and yeah, whatever way you
Yeah,
want to take
we're so
the
happy
the
you're here.
conversation.
And
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bear market, but you say it's the best year ever for you. That's kind of cool. So so would you say that, I mean, is it because of the bear market that you have time to like develop and build and get more traction, or why is
hmm
that?
hmm I think it's because the technology in the space is maturing rapidly. So, I remember 2 or 3 years ago, people would always talk about like, oh, when is Web3 getting mass adoption? And I think it's already here, to be honest. There's still many billions of people that don't use crypto in their everyday lives, but most of the world's leading brands have a Web3 strategy, are working on projects within the space. And, I've always said this, like whenever Web3 grows, Ankr grows. So it's, the bear market is more of a trading thing, honestly. So I think that involves a lot more speculation around things and, institutional money coming in. But we've always said kind of that, this past summer we were calling Builder Summer. That has just continued. There's so many startups in the space, so many projects that are, making meaningful businesses. So it's great to see. And, if you looked at kind of traction and usage, you would never know that we were in a bear market, right? So I think sometimes the trading is definitely disconnected from the rest of the space.
So would you call Oh dear, I don't know what happened, but we are back. Can you hear me, Josh?
Yes, I can. Looks like we're still waiting on people to
Yeah,
rejoin.
let's wait for some more people. Everyone, let's retweet this so people can find it. I don't know what happened. Guess it takes a while for everyone to find back. So how was your day, Josh?
Well, my days, I'm on the east coast of the US, so it's still mid-morning for
Oh,
us here, but it's been good.
yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of weather do you have there? Is it warm?
Oh, no, I wouldn't call it warm. It's not cold though. It's just kind of a normal autumn day. Probably very similar to European weather at the moment here. It's
Okay.
my first winter in a couple of years. I used to live in the warm, so
Well,
it'll
I
be
have
interesting.
minus 12 degrees, and that's Celsius, so I don't really know how much that is in
That's pretty
Fahrenheit.
cold. Yep,
Pretty cold, yeah. Frosty trees, and well, it was a beautiful day.
yep.
So where's everyone? Wait, let me send the link to some people. Oh well, the technical things. It's not always on our sides.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard on Twitter. If you hit the wrong button, you can, end the whole thing.
Really? Well,
Yeah, I think so.
uh,
When I posted these in the past, you got to be careful.
I'm glad I don't have access then to do that. I'll probably do it. So, lots of people are joining. And I don't know, should we start from the beginning again,
Yeah,
Josh, a little bit, maybe?
yeah. I think the recording's already published out there, so maybe
Okay,
just for the
yeah,
sake of
okay.
time, we can jump into some of the things you wanted to chat through.
Let's have it. This is chapter 2 then of the Ankr interview here at Crypto Miners. My name is Mary still. And yeah, we have Josh with us, Josh Neuroth from Ankr. So, Josh, where
Yep.
were we? I think I don't remember
Yeah,
exactly
we're
where.
talking a little bit about the journey for Ankr.
Yeah,
There's some big milestones. We're talking about kind of the bear market and before we got cut off, and it's more of a speculative trading thing. I think generally, like it's going to be my personal opinion. I was on a podcast last year, and I was like, oh, I think Ethereum hit 10K this year. Obviously, did not happen.
yeah,
No one knows what the market's going to do. But I do think it will be most likely with kind of where last year was. If you look across the board, all of technology had a massive boost from government spending, from inflation rates, from all these kind of things, from
oh, yes.
post-pandemic,
Hmm.
right? And I think in a lot of ways, generally the world market, including crypto, but also much bigger than crypto, has been kind of taken back from a market capitalization to where we were in like late 2020, early 2021, like that December kind of January period. So we're almost
Yeah,
like kind of 2 years reversed, but if you look at like the crypto, like if you look at like all the technology under crypto, like the technology is way, way, way ahead of where it was 2 years ago,
that
right?
is
We
true.
have we have chains that are faster. Ethereum has moved to proof of stake from proof of work. We have the layer two scaling. We have the new zero knowledge ZK stuff coming up here. So, and I think there's like a reemergence of decentralized finance that's happening right now. Like, with kind of this fast money, fast returns, a lot of people just said, hey, CeFi is easy, the user experience is great, we'll just use that. We've seen kind of like the floor come out of CeFi from BlockFi to, FTX and others this year. And what I've been kind of calling it is we're going into more or less of a decentralized finance renaissance, like a DeFi renaissance. So, you know,
Yeah, many
um,
people say that. So yeah, I guess that is.
yeah, exactly. So I think that's exciting. It's exciting for more people getting familiar with like wallets and technology, and how to kind of manage their own funds and assets in the space. And then there's so many startups building things. So a lot of the hype or the has kind of died down, but that's not a bad thing because we're still seeing builders, we're still seeing people kind of find the proper use cases for stuff, and figure out how to make money and become sustainable crypto projects. So I think like these kind of market downturns make the ecosystem very strong, kind of weeds out the companies that are just hyperbole based and don't really have any substance behind them, and also how just helps kind of clean and kind of prune the space, so to speak. So we're excited. November was our best month ever at Ankr. And we'll keep chugging along and produce traction. So I want to highlight a couple of things that we're working on right now. So if you're not familiar with Ankr, I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that we do
Yeah,
here. And
I was
Mary,
I was
yeah,
just
feel
gonna
free to
ask you,
stop me.
maybe we could
Mhm.
have like an elevator pitch or something, like a little short, brief presentation, so everyone is
Mhm.
with us on the same page. So, what is it Anchor
Yeah,
is?
yeah. So Ankr ultimately is infrastructure for Web3. So what does that mean? Like a lot of people are like, well, we kind of most people have a generalized idea of like what infrastructure means. So I like to use analogies to kind of describe this because infrastructure is needs it, right? So in the physical world, we could think about infrastructure as water, electricity, roads, mass transportation. All of these, like the infrastructure, makes cities, countries grow faster and easier. And it's a massive business, right? Like you think about the telecom business, your cellular service, the internet service, the cloud services out there. They all are these things that are frankly utilities in the space. It's literally the most utility you could possibly have in Web3 is to be an infrastructure product or infrastructure platform. Um, I like to kind of use this analogy that Web3 is like this, like the bigger, like if you think about Web3 as a country, if every city or every like province in that country is its own chain. So you have like Ethereum, you have Phantom, you have Avalanche, just some of the chains, Solana. They all have their own little provinces with their own cities and their own ecosystems within those. And generally, like for people to use those different, travel between them, they need infrastructure to do that. And then within those. So, that's kind of an analogy I use. Like Ankr is kind of the pipes that connect different chains together, as well as within those ecosystems, make those chains easier to use. So how do we do that? Well, kind of our product that is kind of our most stable or our most of it our core is what we call our blockchain connection system, and that is in the community usually referred to the RPC. RPC is kind of just stands for remote procedure call. No one needs to know what that stands for, just an acronym, but it's our blockchain connection. So in Web3, everyone needs to use a blockchain connection to these decentralized networks. It is somewhat of a commoditized product, and that is what we built our incentive-based protocol around. So earlier this year, we brought more utility to the Ankr token, allowed for staking with that on that system, and we have a pretty aggressive roadmap in 2023 to really increase the decentralization of that, as well as the utility around the Ankr token. And then, in kind of all these branching off from that, we're working on all these products for developers, for stakers, for data indexers and market research analytics companies. Effectively, our infrastructure kind of enables all these different use cases. So the great news on that is like if you're, really whatever the use case, whether it's a game, whether it's an NFT marketplace, exchange, wallet company, they all can use Ankr's infrastructure, right? And so it's kind of like a best case because like we saw a lot of traction in the last year, about a year ago, for NFTs. That's still like we see a lot of Web2 companies using NFTs right now, but a lot of like the new kind of hot stuff is in GameFi and games using that, right? So it kind of allows us like to grow even when we're in a bear market because we're kind of like customer agnostic, if that makes sense. Like we don't need like one use case. Like if NFTs are not doing great, something else in the ecosystem like DeFi Renaissance is doing great. So
You
that's
help
kind of
out
like
wherever
a
you're needed, and that's
yeah,
everywhere. That's good.
exactly. So
Yeah,
it's great to be on this journey, and we're excited to support so many projects in the space.
I really liked your explanation there with the cities and with the country and the cities. That was a good one.
Hmm.
I'm gonna borrow that one, I think, if anyone else. So, what kind of benefits then is it for building with Ankr?
Hmm. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I think one of the building on Anchor. So, usually that means like a developer building on Anchor. I'm going to classify as that because developers
Mhm.
could work at, Web2 companies, they could work at traditional finance companies, they could work at, DApps and DeFi protocols. So what's the benefit? So number one is we probably have, I'd say our network is probably the thing that most stands out to me when people ask and stands out to our customers. So most of our competitors have frankly just built that use like kind of RPC infrastructure. They've just built what I call like wrapped AWS. They just like deploy to, AWS or Google Cloud or Microsoft Azure, and they just have like an RPC service that runs in those clouds, kind of in those general purpose clouds. Like what makes Ankr unique is because we've had built the decentralized and the distributed node network, we have like nodes all over the world. And that ultimately means that the service is really, really fast for global users. So, typically, like I think, a lot of people beat up on Infura, which is probably the first RPC provider ever to market. Like we see we're about a 1/5 of the latency for, compared to Infura in a lot of the edge markets that we serve. So that means that Infura is 5 times slower, right, than us. And so people, in decentralized finance, the user base is like everywhere. There's people in Indonesia. There's people in Argentina, right? Like we see people from Nepal to South Africa and Nigeria, all using our infrastructure. So we get that distribution and that decentralization really, really helps with that user experience and making it a faster and more performing service.
So what's needed then to become a node? What do you
Mhm.
need?
Yeah, so nodes are just like applications that run on servers. So,
Hmm.
someone needs to have a server that kind of meets the requirements hardware wise, and then running a node from some kind of data center somewhere. Typically for this kind of use case, like the nodes that were needed are needed to be in like some kind of like professional environment, right? Like there's always going to be a trade-off between like performance and decentralization, at least right now in the space, right? And we want to be in kind of where the internet's very fast, like, but that can be also like some countries as a country don't have fast internet, but there's always going to be data centers in those countries that do have fast connections, and so we try to work with node providers and community members that can run nodes in those places.
So there's no country that can't participate or be a node
Yeah,
somewhere.
exactly. It's a truly global ecosystem.
That's really good. Yeah. And do you also have like Ankr ambassador program? I think I read something. Like, is that
Yeah,
similar then
we
to the
we work
node,
with some
or?
community members. We have like a lot of developers and emerging developers that are kind of learning from our team and learning DeFi and helping promote things. So we do have that. I'm sure our community managers could share more information around that. But
Mm-hmm.
for the average person, I think like there's like kind of two easy ways to basically interact with Ankr. The first is that if you're using a wallet like Tally Wallet or MetaMask or some other wallet, like you can instantly get benefits by switching your blockchain connection to Ankr's network. So
Oh, okay.
uh, yeah, so we have all these networks. You can find them under our RPC on our website. You can find all those networks there. You can add them to your wallet, easily use those. Some information came out about some other services, how they're kind of like tracking IP address to wallet connections. Like we don't do any of that. It's a truly anonymous service on our public RPCs. So that's a great tool for the trading community. We do that as a public good, provide that as a public good in the space. And then secondly, if you're interested in staking, we do have liquid staking. So
Mm-hmm.
we have liquid staking across several different chains out there, and that's available for people to earn APY on.
Yeah, staking is, I think, very popular as well. But how many tokens or no, coins would you have? Do you have to have then to how can I say that? Maybe to become a node, do you have like a certain amount, or is it enough with one or two, or do you have like $2,000 or something like that?
For becoming a node provider,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's a substantial stake needed. Right now it's like 100K Ankr. But there's like a slashing mechanism in place, so you want to make sure that you can actually run nodes. We are working with some community node providers right now and have plans next year to continue to expand that program.
Okay. Uh, you talked about staking, and that's
Mhm.
where can that happen? Where can you do that? Is that on your places yourself, or is it somewhere else outside? Or if you understand
Uh,
what I mean, sorry.
yeah, so actually there's two ways to kind of stake with Ankr. Like uh, there are other third parties that integrate our liquid staking infrastructure into their protocols and products, but you can also just go to Ankr.com and use our
On the
DeFi
web page.
dashboard to do that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. And how much do you like get? Is that that varies, right? Depending on
How much like
where
TVL
does the
do
money
we have?
come from for the staking? Is that
That comes from, yeah, individuals, honestly, or projects that integrate. A lot of staking is made up by like, DeFi protocols that have treasuries at stake. So, a lot of the decentralized protocols out there are earning revenue in crypto and earning assets in crypto, and they form a treasury, and then they want to, not just have that capital sitting around, maybe going up and down in value. So they stake and earn from participating in the network. And some of those companies use that to pay their payroll and other stuff. So
mhm,
I think that's increasingly like a lot of whales in this space. I don't know if people realize this, but more and more like the whales aren't just like individuals. They're which they can be, but they're also
companies?
treasuries of other DApps and providers.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, uh, if you uh, if you want to build on this, does it, what kind of cost is there? And the cost and the revenue that you get then from that, does that go back to the holders then in this staking? Is that what you're meaning, among other
Um,
things?
it's not
Or
it's not exactly a revenue share. What we could say is that the stakers are in Ankr within the Ankr protocol are rewarded for basically participating in the governance and selecting the node providers. So the actual like term we would say is proof of authority, like what node providers have the ability to become and run nodes on the platform. That's really chosen by the communities through their votes, through staking their Ankr tokens to those node providers.
So,
So, yeah, node providers have bad performance, then the community wouldn't want to stake to them and would
mhm.
switch their tokens to a node provider that is earning more and better.
But it's also you are very big on decentralization, right? You
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
you are working with that, and how does that show in your project in Ankr? I mean, do you have a DAO that does all the su suggestions and also decisions, or
Hmm.
there's a company behind this also, isn't it?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, so there's kind of like two parts to this, I think, is the community governance for picking. There's definitely products that Ankr offers that are, part of the company that do produce revenue for the business and kind of strengthen the brand. And then there's the decentralized protocol on it that involves, is kind of exclusively through the Ankr token. So this is kind of like something where I think a lot of companies are trying to figure out the best way to do this, where it's like you have a business to run, you want to be a sustainable business, right? But you also want to have a community focused protocol that effectively gives value back to the community and becomes much stronger through the decentralization and involving kind of like this community governance. So we're definitely doing both at the same time here. Um, we'll as the regulatory environment kind of evolves and matures, we'll probably make some changes to how we do that. But for right now, we kind of have both structures.
Hmm. So what is the benefits of having both? I mean, there must also be some downsides that it's could be difficult, or who's going to decide what, and how much. I mean, obviously the people who hold the tokens or the Ankr, they want the best for the project, right? But
Mm-hmm.
you can never really know if someone comes, and because also this, I know that you had some damage done not too long
Mm-hmm.
ago, but you also handled that very well. I
Yep.
must hats off to you guys for that. That's really interesting doings, I think. We can talk a little bit about that if you want. But
Sure.
what is the benefits and the bad sides of having a DAO, you think, in a company like this?
I don't know if there's. Look. I think what I would say rather is that it's extremely hard to build, especially with infrastructure products.
Hmm.
Like, let's talk a little bit about like why DAO should even exist in this space. So there's many people that actually don't think that infrastructure should be decentralized. They don't really care. They're like developers, and they're just like, oh, I'm just going to pay this company to help me out. We think that right now, while it doesn't matter, in the future, it absolutely will. Platforms actually become, if you think about it, I think at least in the US, the classic example is like, the internet service providers where they charge very high rates. They kind of like don't roll out faster speeds to their residential customers until there's like forced competition, right? And so they kind of become like these monopolies. Like Facebook is frankly like a social media monopoly now, or Meta. Even though they've had some recent troubles, they still own WhatsApp, they still own Instagram. You can basically, if you want to use social, you almost need a Facebook account now. So I think there's like a movement to build a foundation right now that doesn't end up like that within this space. And that's
Yeah,
why the
I agree.
decentralization matters. Though at the moment, because we're so early, like if you think about it, like I don't know, I think I don't personally have a Facebook account anymore, but when I did have one, I think I started using it in 2008 maybe. It was like the sexy startup where you wanted to invite your friends to, and there were other alternatives at the time. There's MySpace, there's Friendster, and frankly, like Facebook is kind of like the only option now, and there's been a lot of scandals with data and all these other, issues. So So I think, we're kind of at that like early stage still, but in 10 years, I think it'll be much better to have decentralized networks. So we're building towards kind of that future. We have a commitment to fully decentralize in that way, and we've executed some key things this year to get there. Now, like we also think that um, decentralization will end up mattering more and more as like regulatory environments kind of develop. Separate from that, I also want to say that it's like really, really difficult, almost impossible to build a great product in a very decentralized way from the get-go. So I don't know if you've ever heard kind of like those quotes from like Steve Jobs that said, the original iPhone was probably designed by like 7 people, right? Like it's and certainly there were hundreds of people at Apple that contributed to that product, but like the core like design decisions and user experience was really made by a very small team. And most like successful products still use very small collaborative teams. That's not to say that like you can't build something on a bigger scale. It's just a lot rarer to do that. Um, there's kind of like that design by committee versus design in a small team. So we think like the best path to decentralization is to start off as like a small, passionate team where you can innovate very rapidly, get product market fit, build a great product that everyone loves to use, wants to use more, and then begin to decentralize. So the thing about that is that, there's the speed at which that decentralization happens, and if it happens at all, is really something that, the community needs to do. So, it's kind of up to the projects and the altruism in the space to make sure that happens. But that's kind of where things have been, to date. So I'd like to see this community, on this Ask Me Anything here to definitely, keep putting pressure on projects and infrastructure providers to decentralize if that's something that you care about, which I think you should. And, we'll get
Yeah,
there
for sure.
together, right? But for Ankr, I think, we have this decentralization goal, and we also have other goals too. Decentralization is not our only goal. So we need a top performing product in the space, right? And so building that takes time, and it's also hard to build that in a decentralized way, right? So all these things will take years, and then lastly, obviously, like profitability, revenue, sustainability is really, really important. So I think these things, especially infrastructure, takes a really long time to build good businesses with it. It's kind of like a snowball where the longer it goes, as it rolls downhill, it picks up more snow and gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's exactly
Yeah.
what we're seeing, to date.
I
Yeah.
mean, to build a real good company, if we're outside of crypto, I mean, it doesn't happen overnight either. You have to work real hard, and maybe there's 3 years before you get any revenue at all. You have to like put your
Yeah.
things together and
Right.
and work hard.
Right. Yeah. We
I
have,
think.
we have like, I think the community is trying to figure out like what does it mean to be decentralized right now. Obviously, Ethereum has provided a great definition, but it's like
Mhm.
Ethereum was started in 2014 or 2013 or something like that. Like some of these projects are 6, 7 years old, where it's taken. Ethereum has basically with proof of stake kind of moved into this very decentralized ecosystem where they have, what is it, 400 some thousand validators now that are running Ethereum. Versus in the past, it was like 4 or 5 big mining pools that were really contributing to the majority of the network. So Ethereum has taken 7 years to accomplish that vision of that true decentralization. And I think, for us in the next 2 years, we're going to see that as well.
So you mentioned a little bit about the team earlier. So how big is your core team, or how many employees do you have?
Yeah, so we have first of all, our team has probably tripled in the last 18 months, which is awesome.
Oh, wow.
Kind of on my direct infrastructure team, we have about 45 people now, and then within the bigger Ankr organization and some of the side projects we're working on, we have north of 100 people now.
That's a lot. Yeah. Good. So you also have,
It's maybe a lot for Web3, but it's very small relative to others in the space. Some of the exchanges we work with have 5,000 people or
yeah,
8,000
yeah, yeah.
people already.
Yeah, that's even more for sure. So let's mention something about your app chains
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
its uses. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I think we're going into a world where we're going into a multi-chain world, and I think that generally, how will this space evolve? We're going to have these very large layer one chains like Ethereum, Avalanche, whatever other Solana, that kind of form this decentralized trusted layer, the trust layer in the space, right? But there are a lot of apps and companies that want to build their own chain and provide benefits to their community within the kind of build their own ecosystem. And so a good example is some of the gaming studios out there that are building kind of GameFi chains for all their games, where they'll have, I mean, you already think about this. Like, I don't know if we have any PlayStation or Xbox kind of gamers on this call, but
Probably.
yeah, but like you probably already seen this. You get like your Xbox points, or you get your like Halo points or credits that you can use in the game. I
Mm,
mean, that is like right now, that's just a system that kind of uses traditional finance, but a lot of game studios are actually looking at moving that into crypto,
yeah,
and making like kind of like these credits and all that onto put that onto a blockchain and start building an ecosystem around that, right? And so that's like when we refer to app chains, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about application specific blockchains. And when I say
mm,
application, it might be like a company that runs their own blockchain. Like, I don't know, you might have, Qantas or Delta Airlines that kind of maybe eventually run their own app chains to run their rewards points and their loyalty program. And they effectively build a community around that, kind of in that
yeah, that's a
way.
good example.
Yeah, I mean, we're
Or
still seeing
stores
kind
have
of,
also when you do
yep,
your grocery shopping, you get points. At least here in Sweden.
yep, yep, exactly. So we see we're still extremely early on app chains. But generally, I think the primary users at the moment are projects are kind of like new startups in the space that want to launch their own chain, right? Maybe as a DeFi protocol, and then also high gas users. So, if you run a game on Ethereum right now, which there aren't many because it's so expensive, every transfer is costing like, I don't know, remember what the current Gwei is, but it's like $20 worth of transaction cost relative
Yeah,
to,
that's
fiat.
impossible
Yeah,
on a
so
game.
like, as a game company, you want to control that and, improve your user experience within your game.
Hmm.
So that's kind of where app chains are. To be honest, at the moment, like a lot of these emerging products for us, we haven't kind of our strategy right now is like I said before, is to figure out how to build the right product that makes revenue and then decentralize it. So, we've been doing the RPC stuff for 3 or 4 years now, basically. And, we started that decentralization this year. And I posted this on our Reddit account, but recently, like some of the dexes that had the Ankr tokens on them, they actually ran out of liquidity. And the reason is because so many developers started buying Ankr tokens on those dexes and started funding their infrastructure bills with those Ankr tokens. And at the time, it was kind of happening on, just the dexes themselves. There wasn't enough movement to really affect the price. But, as that growth happens, as we get on a larger scale on that, it's going to put a lot of buy pressure on the Ankr tokens. So, and then simultaneously, as that growth happens, we'll have more of the self-staking happening on the other side. So effectively, the supply of the Ankr token starts getting, you know, basically locked into the protocol. We
Mm.
already just like 2 weeks ago, we approached. 100 million Ankr that were staked to the protocol in the last 3 months. So that's relatively low. It's less than 1% of the total supply, but it's it's off to a good start.
For sure, yeah. So I mentioned also earlier you had some exploit happening on December 1st, I think it was, where $5 million in funds were lost, basically. Could you tell us a little bit about what happened, just briefly, and then I would have questions about that afterwards.
Yes, effectively there was an exploit that happened while an upgrade was occurring on the product. I won't tell. We're still kind of in investigation with law enforcement, so I won't talk too much about like what we know or who did that. But effectively, what because it was liquid staking, the underlying assets were not affected. And what happened is the attacker was able to use the decentralized exchange liquidity to basically start swapping. They basically were able to exploit that, create an infinite mint of our AB and BB token, which is our liquid staking token. And then they went to the decentralized exchanges like Wombat and others and began, trading in the liquidity pools for, other assets, right? And so effectively the liquidity providers were then caught off guard in that, and there was a massive amount of slippage that happened as those trades were going. So what we did is we announced that and I don't know of a lot of other companies in this space. First of all, props to our DeFi team and our infrastructure team for their like extremely fast coordination with all the decentralized exchanges.
Yeah, I would say.
So we were able to kind of lock the liquidity pools, do some things with the smart contract once we kind of knew how the attack happened that limited the damage to that. And also, we have a great relationship with Binance, who also did some freezing on their end. And so, these exploits like are a major issue in our community, but what makes them limited or the collateral damage more limited is when the community is all working together. And so I think that speaks a lot to our relationships in the space that we were able to stop that within about an hour of it happening and limited to about $5 million worth of damage in the liquidity pools. So what we announced is that we have a compensation plan for those liquidity providers, which to be honest isn't like a requirement. Like there's no contracts, it's DeFi, but we felt like it was important to help preserve and honor kind of our reputation in the space to do that. And thankfully, Ankr, because of what I spoke about earlier around sustainability, was able to kind of take the hit because we've been smart with our funds and our treasury and focused on revenue and traction. Some of the other protocols out there that had exploits like this were basically dead in the water afterwards, from even a smaller one like this, because they didn't, they're just experiments in the space and they don't have like a real business model.
Yeah. So to help this from happening, I mean, you took help from, you said Binance, and you have to like freeze things with the central exchanges.
Mm-hmm.
And being that your main focus is using a decentralized node structure then to help decentralize Web3, has this event or the exploit changed the project's vision of decentralization? And if, in what way? Because had you not had this help, maybe it would have been much worse.
Well, I think like no, that it hasn't changed our vision of decentralization is the short answer at all. I think what really is this. So like DeFi is well, let me say this. The DeFi exploits tend to be out there in the open immediately, right? Like it's because people are watching the blockchain and there's full transparency. When you think about centralized exchanges, you have no idea if they've been hacked because they'll never announce it.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm personally aware of some situations where that were never announced to the public, where centralized, organizations were hacked and lost a lot of money. We're seeing, one where like with FTX right now, where there may or may not have been a hack there, but there's like customer funds missing, and you don't find out until there's a court proceeding because it is centralized. So like the trade-off with DeFi is that, these things are DeFi almost carries a bad rap because these things are public, when in fact they often happen in other entities. They're hidden from the public view. So I think, generally though, like you could argue that because in rather than just like with one exchange where the attacker maybe has been stopped and frozen in an instant, the coordination around, between half a dozen to a dozen decentralized exchanges had to happen to stop the attack. So even though like, Binance froze some things, like the DEXs can as well. I mean, they're teams that run a code base. And often they have kill switches in the background that can stop a liquidity pool. Some of them don't, but some of them do. And so these things are. I think what it showed me is that there's definitely room for a kind of a product in this space or an alerting service where between the decentralized exchanges, what really has to happen is think about like the attacks, like the longer the attack goes on, the worse it gets. And so the community's ability to work together to stop the attacker, blacklist wallet addresses, things like that, that ends up being very important to limit collateral damage and to keep all of our funds safe. So decentralization should still happen. I totally agree. What we need to do is start working on better infrastructure tools on the communication side to kind of stop these things or alert the public faster. Like right now, a lot of people just are looking at Twitter, and there's not really like this close collaboration. Thankfully, we have like shared channels and communication channels with a lot of these decentralized exchanges. So I'm excited to build a product next year to help with that kind of service, and it's just another use case for Ankr of how we can help support the bigger, broader ecosystem and be a core infrastructure utility in the space.
All right, thank you. Very good. So I have to ask you, how much time do you have, Josh? Do you have to be somewhere in 10 minutes maybe or something?
I have a few more minutes. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I also wanted to ask you what, because you have a huge roadmap, you said. So is there something that you can reveal for us that we can't read on the roadmap, or something that,
Mm-hmm.
what is the vision of the future, like 10 years ahead? What do you hope for Ankr to be, or where should it be in this space?
Yep. So I think very simply put, we want to be, we effectively want really all projects in the space to use us for something and to have like revenue and traction from that usage, and then to accrue that value to our protocol and our token. Simply put, those are like the major goals. So I think 10 years is like a bit too far. Like who knows where this space will be
Yeah,
in
okay.
10 years. But
Let's
I
say
think,
7 then.
we think there's a lot of opportunity. What I will say is that if you look at the next year or two, well, first of all, like look at the trend line. I mean, we went from being, we kind of started out with this idea for like mining, to be honest, in our original white paper, and then we kind of moved away from that and in cloud computing ultimately, and we've gone into this like service-oriented protocol. Where do we go? Like I think we have several ideas for making more utility for our token that we're already experimenting with. And we really think that there's some opportunities kind of in the multi-chain infrastructure space. So right now you have to use bridges to kind of get from one chain to another. We have some ideas for expanding kind of our protocol to help service those needs in the space, especially using rollups and whatnot. So, I think ultimately, like, we'll just keep chugging along on that. But we're kind of at the phase right now where each one of these ecosystems is more or less still kind of like, their own, I don't know, their own city states or whatever analogy you want to use to borrow my analogy from earlier. So if you think
Yeah.
about it, like like for a long time in the world's history, you had like countries that were kind of isolated, had their own economies.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's like this globalization that's happening where everything's connected. We benefit dramatically when that occurs within this space. So, we're doing well as things are still isolated, but as they get more interconnected, that's when we really start benefiting and we'll see the most value. So I think, whatever the underlying chain is really becomes more agnostic and more behind the scenes, and tools like us, platforms like us, protocols like us will all, will do more and more to interconnect that. And that's, something like, I think, when I use those two words together, protocol and platform, what we're trying to do at Ankr is to make a platform that has all these services that is community owned and ran in a protocol format is effectively what we're doing. So like the chains themselves are just protocols. They're not really, their greater ecosystem kind of functions like a platform, but they have that protocol. So we're in Web3, it's like doing both at the same time, which is not an easy thing to do.
Okay, yeah. So it was a pleasure having you here, Josh, to learn more about this Ankr. Is there something that you think that why did we not talk about this that you want to
No,
also
I think
mention?
a lot of people are always listening to these AMAs so they can understand where the market is going, and where are the bigger opportunities in the space. I want to highlight a couple things. What are we excited about at Ankr, and what are we bullish on right now? I guess you could think of it as alpha. Well, first of all, we're very excited about the move-based chains, the move language-based chains, which are Sui and Aptos. Aptos has already got a lot of publicity. Sui's kind of next. I think Sui, these are the effectively ran by the teams that were at Meta, Facebook, that were working on like the Libra, and then Facebook canceled that, and then they went out and started kind of these kind of like native crypto chains. So both those chains are kind of like, very very exciting, and there's a lot of speculation around them. I'm also personally very bullish on the Phantom ecosystem. Personally, Phantom has a really strong DeFi community. Obviously, you have like big influencers like Andre working very closely with Andre Cronier working with the Phantom ecosystem. Phantom is effectively like, to me, they're about to release their Phantom VM, which probably means nothing to anyone here, but it's their node client that they've been working on for years. And it's really going to take the chain to the next level. It's going to be like pretty much almost as fast as Solana, but in a very much more decentralized way. So personally, very excited about the Phantom ecosystem. Think there's a lot of headroom, and Phantom has like been just chugging along, keeps pumping out innovation, keeps expanding the DeFi ecosystem with Spirits and Spooky and Tomb, all those decentralized exchanges and Paint Swap. So very, very strong. I would definitely watch that if you're a trader, see what's going on over there. What else? I think the ZK stuff. So ZK stands for zero knowledge. There's ZK EVM, there's ZK WASM that's coming up. That's going to be kind of it. To me, that's like the next driver of the next bull market is the ZK stuff. So, if you're a trader, definitely read up on that and understand how that's going to impact like something we're working on as well.
All right, thanks for the tip. I mean, if you're interested in listening to Phantom, we're going to actually host them here 19th of December. So very welcome then to come listen and ask your
Ask them
question.
ask them about Phantom VM and try to get some of the ecosystem on. I love the Phantom community, some of the best in the space. So
Okay, cool. I see we have someone else from your team. Maybe they would like to say something. The Ankr official is here, I see. Oh,
I think they
nope.
might just be supporting.
Okay, no pressure.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, it was a really pleasure to host you, Josh, and learn more about this Ankr. And maybe you can come back again when in
Yeah,
half a year or
for sure.
something and
Thank
tell
you
us
so
more.
much. Thank you for having us all on, and really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, happy you came. Oh, look, we have someone here now. Maybe they want to say something.
Oh yeah, hello. Just was about to say the same thing that Josh mentioned. We are just to support, and for visibility. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. And as I said, welcome back anytime because we love knowing more about these bigger projects also, not just the new tokens that's coming out, and yeah, it's a lot to learn. I think it's so much to speak about. So yeah, thank you so much, and thank you everyone in here also for coming. And yeah, I hope to see you all soon again.
Awesome.
So have a good one.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, team.
Yeah, thank you so
All right.
much.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, team.
Bye-bye.